Prof, let me just stop you there for a moment because we have another important guest that's just arrived. Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi from the EFF. Welcome and join the conversation. In fact, what I want to do is plonk you right here.
That is fine.
So that the two of you get into that sparring. So, Dr. Ndlozi, Prof Nhlanhla here is saying that Nhlanhla Nene is really getting the raw deal of, is getting the back end of the stick here, because all that there is this lie that he went to the Gupta compound, whereas publicly previously he'd said he'd never met them except in public gatherings. Why should he be let go?
Well, it's very important that a Minister of Finance is a person that is beyond reproach. And that's number one. You must be a person of integrity. In these difficult economic times, I doubt that people with money would want to spend their money in South Africa with a minister who lied about meeting a well-known criminal family that had been working on infiltrating the state for a very long time. And that lie was very important because it was a denial of being party, not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times. Yesterday, there were some revelations that he actually had met them 11 times. Now look at the picture. Mcebisi Jonasi meets them once. They make him a deal. They offer him money. He goes and he tells Nhlanhla Nene. Nhlanhla Nene says, no, let's go and speak in the balcony because our offices may be bugged. He still doesn't confess at that moment to Mcebisi that, by the way, I've been myself there 6 times. And these were the discussions. In the confessions or in the commission, one of the deals that they tried to influence, which the PIC was getting involved in and was not successful, was the purchase of independent media. He says that nobody pursues him. That what was your attitude? Because ultimately the PIC did not fund that deal. The people who ultimately purchased the independent media had to get money from a Chinese corporation bank or something. And therefore, these are the things that when you lie about meeting a criminal Gupta family, and then you lie, you say, no, I bumped into them, creating an impression that, you know, you are above board. And then it comes out, no, you have been there discussing state and sensitive information with them. What kind of a person is that? The second reason is, we put these questions to him through a parliamentary process. I'm standing here. The man has not responded. That's the second lie. He hasn't answered you. He hasn't. We would have published that letter, Xoli, because the questions are very powerful. The questions have to do with his influence. The questions have to do with what those meetings were about, the contents of them, whether the Gupta family spoke to him about deals related to the PIC. If we have that letter, we would have published it. I'm standing here. We don't have that letter. And that's the second lie Nhlanhla Nene is speaking about.
Let me quickly also bring up this element. Your letter, your leader's letter to the president of the country yesterday says, Mr. President, by the way, we have it on good authority that there is more sensitive information about Nhlanhla Nene, which is why it's not in your best interest to keep him in your executive because he's going to taint it further. What is that sensitive information?
We are caught between the rock and a very hard place because our sources are very highly placed in the cabinet of Ramaphosa, in state institutions, as well as in the NEC. Some of these individuals, particularly the ones that have given concrete information to us, face serious power dynamics, including their lives, to be honest. So we have to be sensitive about the ways in which we handle that information. That's why we ask a question. You know, when you tell me that 1, 2, 3, 4 has happened in such a year, and I have to protect your identity because you are a whistleblower, essentially, then I put the questions through a parliamentary process, because in the parliamentary process you speak under oath. Now the guy is not answering. He's refusing to answer. He runs away. We even say to Ramaphosa, your man is not, he's disrespecting parliament. You know, we only had to know that Des Van Rooyen has been to that family 6 times or 7 times.
7 times.
Okay? 7 times. That's all we had to know. The entire public said no. There were no people of analysts here with blue suits coming and arguing that, no, it's just meetings. I want to know first, what was the content before we fire the guy? We all agreed that you meet the Guptas, who are a well-known family that is trying to capture the state and is in corrupt deals through the president and many ministers. You meet them in their private home, you go. Now, Des Van Rooyen also lied. Then the public protector exposed him. You get what I mean? It's the same. Nhlanhla Nene says, no, on this platform, on eNCA, to the South African public, he says it was just, coincidence.
All right.
And then it comes out he met them 6 times, was still playing games, was still having to explain unnecessary things here.
All right.
He's lost integrity, he must go.
All right, we're going to come back to you about what some are saying are possible ulterior motives, why the EFF has been relentless in as far as Nhlanhla Nene is concerned. Let me bring in Devon here. Dev, we know that the Minister of Finance is scheduled to go to the IMF World Bank meeting in Indonesia, and that, by the way, those meetings, I understand it, start today on the 9th up until the 14th. Do we know whether he's still in the country or he's left? Because if he's still here, then that gives us clues about whether or not he's still a finance minister.
The last we heard is that it's business as usual. So I would imagine that he's left already, because the rescheduling of that meeting or his availability for that meeting hasn't changed. But I think, Colin, what's important is that when we try and measure the international reaction to this from an investor point of view, we look at bond yields, because bond yields basically means the propensity for investors to buy our debt, they buy our bonds. That has actually gone up. So our bond yields has gone up, which tells you there is some concern about the uncertainty around.
And the presidency has allowed this matter to fester in public without issuing a single statement. So are they telling us something by not saying anything?
Well, that just adds to uncertainty. You look at the rand yesterday when this was at its height, this controversy was at its height, we were 2 cents away from that 15 rand mark. So it's also hitting the local currency, albeit there are external factors as well out there that influence the currency. The other thing is the JSE closed at its lowest this year, yesterday. Again, there might be external factors here, but certainly this climate that we are seeing is providing uncertainty to investors, and you're beginning to see it in the numbers.
Prof, let's come back to you.
Sure.
You've heard what Mbuyiseni Ndlozi.
I've heard this young man, yeah.
So, you talk to me then about why you're still so hell-bent on putting up Nhlanhla Nene as this hero.
I'm not hell-bent. I'm just trying to understand. It's important that we get to the real reason behind this thing.
You're right about this, not conclusive.
Right? So if we say we are firing him purely because he met the Guptas, how many of them met the Guptas? Have they all been fired? By the way, Des Van Rooyen was fired after evidence came out that, in fact, he was part of a plot to bring in Gupta-allied people into the state, and that's what he eventually did when he was appointed. So there was ample evidence there. So you cannot rush into firing Nene simply because of a mere mention that Nene met the Guptas. And again, I was trying to portray this context earlier, that we need to get a bit of perspective here. That these ministers had to meet the Guptas because the president wanted them to, right? For them to keep their job. That was a precondition for keeping your job, right? So what Nene did, and which has now come out, right? He was stalling, especially on the nuclear deal thing. He was stalling. He was managing the relationship, this and that. So the mere fact of him meeting the Guptas should not on its own be a dismissible act. But what is the real reason? If we say maybe he aided his son, he was part of the PIC giving his son money, that's fine.
Can I just come in there? Do you know what he says at the commission?
Yeah.
The scandal, the milk scandal, Frede Dairy Farm. Frede Dairy Farm was a red flag.
Yeah.
I started seeing red flags when the dairy matter came up. I still went and met them. Can it defend that? What is there to defend?
These are wait.
In their private compound.
Mamel. These are details in a bigger story. The fact that you add an additional detail does not change the gist of the story. Is that you had a captured president who demanded of all his ministers to be part of this capture, right? And for them to remain within cabinet. By the way, right? The cabinet approved the nuclear deal. what level of liability, of complicity do we attach to this cabinet?
To this president?
My point, even to this president. So my point is that we shouldn't get into this trance because someone is beating a drum, right, without asking questions. My sense is that someone wants Nene's job. It could well be someone within the cabinet, right? And I'm even surprised that Cyril Ramaphosa has not defended Nene.
So this is jostling for power.
This is power struggle.
This is a power play within the ANC.
This is the power struggle within the ANC. And I'm even surprised that the president of the ANC hasn't defended. If he wanted to keep his minister, he would have said, well, I think he's doing a good job, by the way. Apart from what is being said, I think he's doing a good job, right? So how do you say, for instance, assuming that what Kuselwa said is true, that Nene never called the presidency to hand in his resignation? So someone has been spreading the rumors that Nene is about to leave and the president is going to hire Papa Chrissy. So someone clearly wants Nene's job, but they're not telling us what exactly is the real reason behind they want him gone.
You're getting into sensitive ground.
On the cabinet issue here. So you have a finance minister that, of course, works with cabinet and the rest of government. Government comes up with the budget, with the February budget. But of course, you have the finance minister that decides how much each department is allocated. Now, the worry is with investors is, can we have a finance minister who's compromised at this level, deciding how much each department gets? That's a bit questionable here.
You have a cabinet, the same cabinet that approved the nuclear deal. Are you going to ask the same questions? The deputy president, who was seated next to JZ, approving that cabinet deal that was possibly ruinous to our economy.
Was the same
it's the same question. The questions that we can ask of Nene, we can raise similar questions to everyone else. But my point is, why is it going down? Why not the rest of them?
Mr. Ndlozi, you're on record as having said there are some within this cabinet who are acting as prime ministers. They are hounding out all those who are said to be Gupta associates, yet there is no conclusive evidence that's been presented to say they've done anything wrong just yet. Why this particular minister, you're so hell-bent on moving him? By the way, there has been this allegation as well that the deal around VBS, or the so-called the collapse of VBS, you were unhappy about that, and therefore perhaps that could be one reason why the EFF is acting the way that it is towards Nhlanhla Nene. There's also the issue about the so-called cigarette smugglers who are avoiding to pay tax in this country that you are associated with. And so that could be the reason why the EFF is so allergic to Nhlanhla Nene. Could that be the reason? Would that be the motivation?
Let's start first with the sadness of the professor here. Are you still a professor? I can't remember. But this professor says Nhlanhla Nene did nothing wrong. He still wants to find out what it is that Nhlanhla Nene did that is wrong. And he is unable to accept that misleading the public, misleading the country about meeting a criminal group is something that is wrong. He's unable to take that a person who is a minister, who's got power and presides over the PIC as a deputy minister, who's got power to allocate funds to people and so on and so forth, lies about discussing sensitive state information, lies about meeting the Gupta family for even if you were sent
sensitive state information.
Yeah, I mean, by his own admission, there was a discussion of a PIC deal with the Gupta family in their compound. By his own admission at the commission, that AJ Gupta asked and was concerned about Iqbal
survey, yes.
who has turned his back on them in relation to the purchase of independent media. Now, nobody is raising questions that what was your response? Did you influence the PIC? Because ultimately the PIC didn't fund that deal. Now, I'm saying to you, before we go there, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied with us moving him out on the basis of him lying. On the basis of him lying. Ramaphosa, I don't have evidence of Ramaphosa lying about meeting the Gupta family, about the nuclear deal. And I have evidence, a confession. If Nhlanhla Nene is not wrong, why is he asking for forgiveness? Why is he asking for forgiveness? He's asking for forgiveness because he knows that he went on his capacity as a representative of the people of South Africa and the Republic to meet people in their private home to do wrong things. So that's number one. Now let's address this thing of our, it's really lazy speculation, and it's making us not focus. You know, when we were going for Des Van Rooyen, when we were going for Malus Gigaba, when we were going for Zuma, nobody was reminding us of something we told you. In 2013, when there were clear indications that we are going to contest for elections, we were told that we need about 500,000 to register in order for us to contest. We didn't have that money. We marched, we made demonstrations, we picketed, we even got lawyers who went to argue for us for free that this is a serious undermining of our rights to participate in the elections. We lost the case. And then when Mazoti came to give us a donation, we are the ones that told the public. We were not ministers, Chief. We were not members of parliament. But we already knew the integrity of, we have to say when people fund us, particularly when we have been on such a big campaign. We are the ones that told the South African people. And therefore, you can watch us, whatever we do. And at the time, the president of the EFF was facing a tax bill from the same people who are running SARS. He was facing criminal charges from the same government. Some of these people, I mean, Pravin, for an example, Pravin was a minister of finance when the tax problems of the CIC started. And when Pravin was unfairly removed, we were at the forefront. And we explained to the public that it's not about the favors that we get. In fact, we don't even get any favors. It's not about VBS. It's about the principle, Koli. It's about the principle. Nhlanhla Nene lied. That is the discussion. The discussion is not the nuclear deal. The discussion is when we met the ANC to discuss local government elections, part of the demands was the ending of the nuclear deal. By the way, in 2016, we said you fire Zuma, you nationalize the mines, you take out the distem in the national. Part of those things was, and then you don't engage in the nuclear deal. Do you know what they said to us in the meeting? They said there was no nuclear deal. They all, I mean, Jeff Khatem was the one who said there's no nuclear deal. My point is to you, and Jeff, let's focus here. Let's focus here. My point is to you, let us focus here. We have a confession. You understand? I'm not talking about somebody saying somebody said this. We have a confession and a forgiveness and a plead for forgiveness. Let the guy go. He's not credible. He's not integrous. Of all those cabinet positions, the most sensitive, the one that requires the highest integrity is the guy that is presiding over the purse of the people.
All right.
You can't be a liar.
On that point, I'm going to press the pause button.